So, chapter 2, you go a little bit further back.
Yes, I do. I start with Cicero and St. Jerome, who are huge figures in early translation theory. They were translators themselves, and they wrote about their translation process as some of the early theorists did.
Yeah.
And I look at the concept of literal and free translation, which in many ways originated with their writings. And so St. Jerome, for example, would say he was translating sense for sense rather than word for word. And that dominated much of Western translation theory, certainly for 1500, 2000 years. So I try and bring out, it's obviously a very quick run through of some of the key figures,
Right.
but I try and bring out how this concept remained of relevance to translation theory. But then the reason I do that is because the rest of the book then moves forward. And even some of the later theorists, so people like Dryden and Tytler, begin to look a bit in a more sophisticated way or more nuanced way. Some of the other factors which affect translation is not just literal and free. The writing on translation becomes much more sophisticated later on.
And of course, religion played a big role in terms of characterising translation.
Hugely, and in many different contexts as well. In Europe, it was the translation of the Bible above all, and there were figures such as Martin Luther or William Tyndale, who were translating the Bible into the local languages, whether it be German or English, and who ran real risks in that way. These are classical examples of how translation mixes with ideology and power, and so the very act of translation was an act of challenging the Roman Catholic Church in Rome.
Right.
And so they were huge figures, some of whom paid with their lives for what they were doing. Another thing that's really interesting is what happened in other traditions. So I speak a little bit about the tradition of translating the Buddhist sutras into Chinese. And these were very big collaborative projects, and of interest also because they were translating from an oral versions of the text, normally in Sanskrit, into Chinese. And so we can see a little bit how the translation process varied over the course of centuries as these texts were translated into Chinese for a new audience. And they became stabilized in that way as well.
Right.